high-pitched sound disrupted the once quiet room. The vibration traveled through the wooden desk and roused me from my shallow nap. Drowsily, I picked up the source of the noise and checked the reason of the disturbance. Once I read the alert, I placed my secret-certified phone back on the desk. I stretched my stiff arm muscles and shook the wireless mouse to activate my laptop screen. There were several alerts blinking annoyingly as they competed for my attention. I ignored the ones that were advertisements from the Seeker market and opened my private inbox page. My tired eyes widened slightly as I read the latest Seeker intel news. The Seeker's head scout was assassinated last night in his home. There were no signs of entry, nor struggle. It seemed like someone had placed a hit on him. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I met the man on some occasions, though I had never had the possibility of exchanging more than a few words with him. He was quiet, and from our brief contact, a bit of an ass. Still, he didn't deserve to be killed like that, especially in the supposed safety of his home. I continued to read the message. A replacement hadn't been named yet. Until then, the scout rank will be placed under temporary authority of a head warrior. It made sense, considering how close the warriors and scouts worked together. Obviously, the Seeker directors were shaken by the assassination. Not wanting to read more bad news, I closed the browser and rubbed the remaining sleep from my eyes. Absent-mindedly, I looked up at my instrument-themed calendar. The date was March 21st. Numbness momentarily took a hold of me. As I realized the importance of the date, I shook my head before more emotions could take hold of me. I got up from my black chair and ventured into the short hallway as I made my way to the kitchen. I made plain toast and ate it slowly as I reflected on the news. Tension had been rising for several months, and yet the head scout's assassination was the shattering of cracked glass. The coffee machine hummed as it finished brewing. I got up and took a simple blue mug from the cupboard. I poured the hot liquid and breathed it in. Immediately, my senses were more alert, even before I began to sip. I turned on the TV and leaned against a small granite island. Video footage of hundreds of people were shown on the flat screen. The people were shouting while others were crying as they protested in front of the Seeker HQ. The reporter spoke over them.
March 21st, 2020. It's been 15 years since the start of the Silent War and the rise of the Seeker organization. As much of the world will never forget, it was this day that the extremist organization known as the Phantoms attempted to acclaim supreme rule over the planet. Hundreds of people were killed, and many more are still missing or unaccounted for. Seemingly rising from the ashes, the Seeker organization was formed, and they eradicated the Phantom threat. Some people claim that we owe them our freedoms.
I snorted at the naive statement. The civilians had no idea that the Phantoms were still lurking and waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike back. I had to agree, though, with the Seeker's logic in misinforming the media in order to prevent public panic.
Or is that so?
My interest was piqued at the reporter's comment.
Despite what the Seekers have done, many countries are wary of the Seekers and their continually growing power. The citizens we've questioned each had completely different opinions regarding the organization.
I watched blankly as one overly enthusiastic woman condoned and praised our actions. I deemed her as ignorant and superficial, before the scene switched to a middle-aged man. His opinion of the Seeker was not so positive. I hummed in thought as I considered his justified mistrust of the organization. I turned off the TV, as I had enough of negative news for one day. It seemed that the head scout's assassination hadn't been announced yet. I knew that it was only a matter of time before the information would get leaked to the media. Once I finished my coffee, I rinsed the mug in the sink before I left the kitchen. I went back to my room and saw my phone flashing red. I picked it up and read the text message.
Agent Moon, there's a possible sighting at Madison Square Garden. You and Agent Michaels are to check it out ASAP.
I sighed inwardly. It was the start of another busy day. With a purpose, I proceeded to my closet, where I took out a pair of dark blue jeans, complemented with a simple black t-shirt. I also grabbed a plain white towel and went into the small bathroom. 15 minutes later, I was fully dressed. A sleek leather jacket and a pair of running boots were added to the mix. I then carefully slid my .40 caliber Glock into my safety harness that was hidden inside my jacket. Satisfied that I was prepared, I stepped out of my one-bedroom apartment and made sure to lock the door. I nearly ran into my neighbor, who was a grumpy elderly man. He made a sound of surprise before he swore at me and made his way into his apartment. The door was promptly slammed shut. I allowed an amused smirk to form on my face at my neighbor's behavior. Even after 2 years of living in the same building, that old man still hadn't gotten used to having a secret agent live right next door. I stepped out of the building and went into the parking lot. I approached my gray sedan and got inside. I turned the car on and made sure that I was prepared for whatever I would face once on site. It was then that the thoughts I usually suppress snuck through my mental barrier. I remembered my first recon mission as a scout. I was barely past 20. It seemed simple at first. Go in, scout out the area to investigate, and then report back to HQ. The warriors would then come in and wipe out any phantom threat. It was plain and simple, until I saw... I harshly shook my head to get rid of the unwanted memories. I put the gear to drive and drove off. Within 20 minutes, I arrived at the suspected area. Madison Square Garden was the place, as the text stated. When I arrived, I saw another scout agent with a data pad in his hands. I got out of my car and walked over to him. "Agent Michaels?" I stated. The man glanced up at me and nodded in acknowledgement. "What have we got?" I then asked monotonously.
"A minor disturbance,"
the agent replied back.
"We got a call from a witness claiming to have seen glowing eyes stare back at him as he was cleaning the second floor. It's not much, but we can't take any risks."
"Agreed," I stated. "Do we have any backup?"
"A team of warriors is expected to be here shortly."
I nodded in acceptance. With that, the other agent and I made our way inside the dome building. As we walked in, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched. Instinctively, my hand pressed against the form of my gun, always ready, in case it needed to be used. I hoped that I wouldn't be placed in a situation to use it.